Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. There are so many ulama that played an important role in the formulation and codification of the various sciences of the deen, and they made a big impact on the Muslim Ummah. Yet so many of them are largely unknown to the masses. Amongst the ulama that fell into this category was Imam Abu Zayd Ubaidullah ibn Umar ibn Isa Ad-Daboosi Rahimahullah, although some have said that his name was Abdullah ibn Umar instead of Ubaidullah ibn Umar, but he is commonly known as Imam Abu Zayd Ad-Daboosi Rahimahullah. Imam Abu Zayd Ad-Daboosi Rahimahullah was born in the year 367 after Hijrah in a place called Dabusa, which is located in Uzbekistan between Bukhara and Samarkand. The town may not be famous today, but once upon a time it was home to many great ulama, those that were born in Dabusa and travelled elsewhere, as well as those that came from outside and settled in Dabusa. Imam Abu Zayd Ad-Daboosi Rahimahullah came from a house of knowledge, as his father Imam Umar ibn Isa was very taken in by the knowledge of the deen, and his main field of interest was the differences between the ulama and their madhahib. He held a high position of nobility in society, so when his son Imam Ad-Daboosi Rahimahullah was born, he focused on giving him the knowledge of the deen from a young age, and he assisted him every step of the way. He supported his son with everything in life, but if we were to weigh up everything else of life, such as feeding and clothing and raising him, in comparison to the effort that was put into his dini upbringing, then his dini upbringing would outweigh it all. That was how much effort Imam Umar ibn Isa Rahimahullah put into making sure his son learned the deen. And Imam Abu Zayd Ad-Daboosi Rahimahullah was not some layabout just going through the motions because he was being sent to a madrasa. Far removed was he from that. Rather, Imam Ad-Daboosi Rahimahullah had an inherent love for the deen. So we took fully to the study of the deen to such a degree that the ulama used to say that his devotion to his studies was legendary. Imam Abu Zayd Ad-Daboosi Rahimahullah studied under numerous ulama of his time, but his main teacher was Imam Abu Ja'far al-Istarushani Rahimahullah. It was under him that Imam Ad-Daboosi Rahimahullah studied the major part of his fiqh as well as the other Islamic sciences. It wasn't long before Imam Ad-Daboosi Rahimahullah became not only a great alim of note, but in fact the ulama considered Imam Ad-Daboosi Rahimahullah to be one of the greatest Hanafi ulama of all time. A person that's not in the know may think that what made Imam Abu Zayd Ad-Daboosi Rahimahullah so great and famous, especially seeing that many people today haven't even heard of him. Is it possible that perhaps it's something that was made up? The answer would be a big resounding no, because the greatness of a person is not determined by their recognition amongst people. In fact, it's not even determined by their recognition amongst the ulama. Rather, what determines a person's greatness is their recognition in the court of Allah. And for those who knew Imam Abu Zayd Ad-Daboosi Rahimahullah from birth until death, they will be able to see that it is because of the fact that Imam Ad-Daboosi Rahimahullah was accepted in the court of Allah, therefore his acceptance can be found on earth amongst the pious people as well. Looking from the point of fame and recognition amongst people though, then in reality Imam Ad-Daboosi Rahimahullah was not lacking even in this regard. Amongst the many sciences of the Sharia is one which is known as Ilmul Khilaf. Ilmul Khilaf is often translated as the knowledge of the differences amongst the Fuqahaa. Not just knowing how the Fuqahaa differed, but why they differed and how they ended up coming to the conclusion that they reached in order to have given that fatwa. Today it may sound as something simple and something that everybody knows, but in order for things to have reached this level, there had to have been someone to lay down the groundwork for it, and that person was Imam Abu Zayd Ad-Daboosi Rahimahullah. Even today, if a person is very knowledgeable, then he'll know the mufta bihi of the four madhahib. But how many people can claim to know the reasoning and proof used by the a'imma of the madhahib that led to that becoming the fatwa of the respected madhab? And how many people can then claim to know the differences of opinion amongst the ulama within each of the madhahib and their proof as well? So this science is anything but simple. Many people may have heard of Imam Ibn Rushd al-Maliki Rahimahullah and his famous kitab known as Bidayatul Mujtahid wa Nihayatul Muqtasid. That kitab is written on the basis of Ilmul Khilaf, as it lists the differences between the four madhahib. This book was written as a primer for ulama that were mujtahideen, to be able to see the precedents that were laid down by the fuqaha of the past. And it is because of Imam Ad-Daboosi Rahimahullah having formulated the science of Ilm al-Khilaf that a number of kitabs of this nature were later on written, documenting the differences of the Fuqahaa. Imam Ad-Daboosi Rahimahullah had formulated the science, and he was extremely skilled in it. Such was his knowledge of the ikhtilaf of the ulama that the ulama who came hundreds of years later said that even in that late day and age, there was still no one that was able to top Imam Ad-Daboosi Rahimahullah on that issue. Imam Abu Zayd Ad-Daboosi Rahimahullah was also a gifted debater because he had great knowledge and he was a poet as well. So he was very eloquent and able to not only get his point across, but also to bind the opposition so that they realized that they had no way to answer and no way to defeat Imam Ad-Daboosi Rahimahullah in a debate. Imam Abu Zayd Ad-Daboosi Rahimahullah passed away in Bukhara in the year 430 after Hijrah at the age of 63 years old. While the life of Imam Abu Zayd Ad-Daboosi Rahimahullah may not have been preserved in as much detail as that of the A'imma of the Madhahib, but the one thing which can be seen through it all is that the ulama have the highest of praise for Imam Ad-Daboosi Rahimahullah, calling him the Qadi, the Allama, Shaykhul Islam, and many other such titles. May Allah reward him for the effort that he had made for the deen, and grant us the ability to also dedicate ourselves and our children to the deen. آمين يا رب العالمين وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.